I got a newsletter for you guys today, and I'm talking about even if you don't need an annuity, for several people who come in who don't necessarily need one, but they maybe just want one. And if you got any thoughts about this, directly relates to, I'd call it a case study, but it's not necessarily a specific case study. A couple people said, hey, I really like those. Maybe we'll get into the numbers on one of them. If either the two people I talked today decide to take to the next step and maybe put something into place, then we certainly will. But just remind everybody that I do not sell annuities based on need. In a couple cases, I have sold one to someone who really just needs it. They need the guarantee, they need the cash flow, all that stuff. But mostly I sell to people who just want what it gives them. And they either want to just protect money. So two reasons. Hey, I just want to protect some money. An annuity is a great way to do it. It's not the only option. That is the option. That's what I specialize in. A lot of people come in and say, you know what? It is. You're right. It's safe. I get it. But I'd rather buy bonds. Just kidding. An annuity is a bond. The insurance company buys the bond, so you get an additional layer of protection, and usually about the same yield. They want to maximize a portfolio, and they need some guaranteed income. Does far more than just provide a steady paycheck. I've demonstrated that on many occasions. That's why companies like Fidelity and Schwab and even Edward Jones are starting to tell people, hey, take some of your money and go buy some guaranteed income. So rather than just asset aggregators, they're trying to step into the arena of retirement planning, which is a totally different game. We've talked about that as well. I've been saying that for years and years. There's always going to be people who doubt this, but with a lot of the bigger management firms coming in, I got less time for it. I think I saw a few weeks ago, I saw some video on YouTube, avoid annuities at all costs. I don't know what it was. It was the worst information I'd ever seen. I didn't even get mad at it. I wasn't even mad. I just looked at it and thought, what an idiot. And I put a comment on there. I said it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And he commented, I said, come on my podcast, we'll debate it. And I'm happy to do it publicly. I'm not going to share his video because he doesn't deserve to get attention for it because he's just a moron. But yeah, and the only response to my comment was, ooh, somebody got spooked. No, I absolutely did not. So I'm sitting out here publicly stating what I believe and know, and I will not deny that. So annuities are all about protecting assets, and you've got to have a goal before you start looking at options. Too many people get sold an annuity first. That's why they find me. We have to reverse that and get them back to saying, hey, what do we want? I talked to a guy yesterday who said, here's what this guy proposed. It didn't really sound anything like what the guy said he wanted. And I said, you correct me if I'm wrong, but this was not your idea. This was his idea. And that's where the confusion comes from. When it's somebody else's idea, you're trying to make sense of what their thought process is. I'm trying to do it the opposite way and trying to get you to identify it. So then you pick what you want. That's why I say people want these when they find out. And a lot of people come through and don't want them. So I would say half of the people that I talk to just want to protect money. CD bond alternatives. Hey, MIGAs, FIAs. Oh, that FIA looks cool. I'd like to take a shot at the upside. We've talked about the difference between those two. You go with what you like. I don't push either direction, but I show everybody both of those options. And then some people come in and say, I got to have a couple $1,000 a month. I want to bridge this income gap. And that doesn't have to be a need. Maybe it's a want. I want to be able to spend an extra $2,000 a month on things like going to Mexico for a little bit and enjoying yourself. It's not uncommon to blend these two goals together. That's what's interesting right now. And in the past few weeks, I've seen it a number of times. I've got two specifically that I talked to in the past week. It gets me thinking about something I posted last year. It was guaranteed income with or without a fee. But when it comes about, it's honestly someone who says they've got a greater amount of money available they want to protect, but it doesn't take all that to produce the desired level of income. Income payouts are extremely powerful right now. That's why the big companies are jumping on board because they can't deny it. They don't want to lose assets, so they got to get in the game themselves. We've talked about a lot how best to maximize income, and it all depends on when you want the income to start. SPIAs, single premium immediates, are usually not always the best for immediate income, but income within 1 year, and then guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefits on fixed index annuities have been far and away the best if you want to defer for more than a year. We analyze every one of them just to make sure, because if you're going to put a substantial amount of money on it, you got to get the best deal. I got two little case studies that will illustrate this idea perfectly. So the first one's a lady who she's got in her IRA, she's got about $700,000. I rounded up a touch, but it's close. And first meeting, talking about what needs and wants, I said, okay, you can meet all those goals, but you're going to have to decide how much of that money you want to protect. And that's what is possible to be put into an annuity or other safe assets. It's not just about that. But she also needs to secure about $20,000 per year in retirement income starting in about a year. So SPIAs are on the table, GLWBs are on the table. Get that nice sweet spot. I knew right off the bat, if it's $350,000, it's not going to take the whole $350,000 to do it. Now, the reason I say this is because, and I see this all the time, and even recently, where an advisor says, "Oh, you got that money? Put it into this one product." And what it's going to do is, I think, what did we figure out? It's cost her about $230,000 to produce that income. And then guys will sell her a $350,000 income annuity, which puts her in maybe a higher tax bracket, potentially adverse tax consequences, gives her money she doesn't need, didn't request to begin with. Now, if you want more income and you want more cash flow, that is fine. But when you're asking somebody for advice and they push you in a direction that's not optimal, that's where confusion comes from. $230,000 to get the income, it leaves her $120,000 that she wants to protect as well. All of it going in the income product isn't worth anyway. But you look at that and say, what's the best way to do it? I don't really know. I can just tell you what the options are. And if I give you 2 or 3 different ways of doing it, then she gets to decide what she wants to do. And maybe she will put it all in there. Again, if that's her idea, that's okay. So now another guy came to me about a month ago and said he has $500,000 he'd like to protect. He's interested in using annuities to do it. On a side note, he said, we also do need, in about 10 years, I think we're going to have about a $2,000 per month income gap. I'm assuming that's based on his inflation assumptions or something like that. So I showed him, it's like, listen, if you put that whole thing in an income product and defer it for 10 years, that's a powerful payout and it works really well if that's your goal. Then it's going to kick off $80,000 a year. That's far more than $2,000 per month. It's almost $7,000. So if you think about it, it would take a quarter of his assets in total, of the total assets that he wants to protect, to produce the income he wants. Now, this isn't in relation to any of his other assets and all that stuff. And I think in each of these cases, you have to consider those things before you actually put anything in place. But if he says, I really wanted to set that aside and just keep that money and grow it and all that stuff and get some income, he's got a whole lot of options. And the only difference between him and the first lady is that he's got a longer time period to defer. So the way I see it, each person has 3 options with annuities, and both of them have the ability to do it without if they'd like. Both of them said they wanted to protect a specific amount of money, and that's why we consider what the full amount will do. So this is years ago, I started talking about the flex strategy because it was actually the reverse. People realized how easy it was and said, oh, maybe I'll protect a little more. Talk about that in just a second here. The first option is to take part of the money and buy guaranteed lifetime income. That's a great idea for both people. That way they've got that thing set aside and they still have money left over. Spend the least amount of money possible and open up options with the remaining amount of money. Good annuities to use for the remainder would be a MYGA or a FIA, multi-year guarantee, or fixed index annuity. They'd have discretionary access to the account. If there's any spending adjustments, flexibility, require minimum distributions at some point, then you have access to that to make sure you stay within boundaries of what you need for retirement. The spending the least amount on guaranteed income is going to reduce the fees as well, because the MYGA or the FIA, if you use that for just save money, is not going to have a fee. And that's important for a lot of people. You shouldn't pay a fee if you don't need it. Okay, number 2 is use a no-fee income product. Directly relates to a podcast, annuity income or guaranteed income with or without a fee last year. So this is really more applicable to the second guy. If he said, hey, I like the guaranteed income, I like the index annuity, then you use a no-fee product, which is performance-based income. They've got a lot higher growth potential. You're not paying a fee, so the performance of the contract translates to what the guaranteed income might be. They might not work out. Now, these are the products like the Allianz ABC, the 222, and those things that are sold to be all that. I really consider them for someone who, hey, I want to protect money and have a guaranteed income backstop. You're not going to pay a fee. You'll get every penny of that back plus interest. So that's a really good deal. And if the amount you want to protect is easily going to produce more income than you need, then it's a risk you can take to provide that flexibility of potentially having more money to reposition in the future. You're going to have a higher remainder value. That's one thing I talked about in the podcast last year. So since either person has more than enough to create the income desired, this will work great and provide plenty of planning adjustments in the future. However, with the lady I talked to, we could go, if she wants to go deeper. We did not talk about that option because I I just felt just in our conversations that was more appropriate for her. But if she sees this, then we'll run back to that. I hope she knows who she is. I do not mention anyone by name without their permission. And the third option is flex the whole thing. If either of them wants the flexibility with the assets, safety, and a really high growth potential, then it might be a good time to use a product with no income rider. You can set up systematic distributions to mimic the income rider. In either case, the interest earnings on a MYGA or an FIA will be more than enough to hit the income goal. Because of the highest growth potential and the flexibility, you have the option to reposition the assets in the future. If you love the annuity, keep it. Maybe rates are better, you go buy a new one, whatever it is. But I've talked about the flex strategy for years. I didn't necessarily think that it was going to be branded, but in a way it did. So here we are, and we're going to redo that whole thing pretty soon here. It's been on the list for a while. I think I'm actually going to do it and talk about how it applies to everything today. So prior to about 3 years ago, not quite 3 years ago, I think in 2022, early 2022, we still had low rates. They didn't really start to pop until April, May, June sometime. But everybody was doing the flex strategy. That how I came up with it, because the income payouts just weren't high enough to do it. I said, stay flexible, don't pay a fee, and you can do the same exact thing. A lot of those people that started doing it that way have converted and bought income contracts. Now I've got a number of people, even that started with annuities 2 or 3 years ago, who deferred it, maybe a 3-year MYGA, got to a point looking at coming surrender free and have some really good deals available. Turned out to be an incredible piece of advice, some growth. Now you get to reposition in a higher interest rate environment. That could be the future, but you want to preserve your options. And like I said at the beginning, with the flex strategy, a lot of people said, hey, that's easy. There's no fees. I do like the idea of protected money. Instead of $200,000, I'm going to put $300,000 into whatever it is. Okay. Anyway, it's just the type of options you have. Even if you don't need an annuity, you might want one. And neither of these people need it. But again, it makes retirement easier. Safety, security, peace of mind, sleep at night, if that's what you desire to do. So this has been episode 169. My name is Brian Anderson. Like, subscribe, or comment on any of your favorite podcast platforms or on YouTube. And at the top right corner of any page on AnnuityStraightTalk.com, on the video, you can see this button that I'm scrolling over right now. Schedule a call, name, time zone, date, and time. I will give you a call. So I appreciate you guys joining me for 169. I'll still be in Mexico next week, and we will come at you with another great episode. Don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much. Okay, bye.